I'm Angela Sutton, 34, a tech entrepreneur who built an education company from the ground up in San Francisco. My grandfather, my anchor, passed away 6 months ago, leaving a void nothing could replace. He was my loudest supporter, the one who believed in me when my family didn't. Last weekend, my sister invited me to a family gathering at her home in Austin, Texas, insisting she wanted to reconnect after years apart. I walked in with cautious hope, clutching a folder of evidence I'd spent months compiling, but the evening turned sour quickly at the dinner table. My sister rose, grabbed a glass of water, and dumped it over my head, sneering. "You've got 5 minutes to leave my home." My parents applauded, their eyes glittering with delight. As my aunt stayed silent, I wiped my face, smirked coldly, and pulled a heavy stack of papers from my bag. "Well then," I said, my tone firm, "you've only got 5 minutes left to pray." What unfolded next splintered our family forever, revealing a betrayal I never imagined. I had unearthed secrets they assumed were buried, and that dinner became my moment to flip the script. If you've ever been betrayed by family, share your story in the comments. I'd like to know where you're from and how far this tale reaches. Growing up in Austin, my grandfather became my foundation after my parents divorced when I was 8. Grandpa Melvin ran a cozy coffee shop downtown, a place where locals gathered for strong brews and even stronger conversations. He stepped in as the father figure I needed, teaching me about business while I worked behind the counter. Weekends meant stocking shelves or tinkering with his old computer in the back room. That's where I discovered my love for coding, dreaming up ways to improve the shop, like an online ordering option for regulars. My sister always chose another route. She was the perfect student, excelling in tests and winning design awards in school. But beneath it all, she carried a quiet bitterness. Grandpa Melvin would applaud my tech ideas during family visits, saying, "Angela sees the future, that's a gift." But Brandy scowled, whispering to Mom, "He always ignores the older child." Clearly unfair. She'd paste on a smile, but her eyes gave away envy. Once, after he spent an afternoon teaching me to repair the espresso machine with a digital timer I built, she snapped at me later, accusing me of stealing his attention. Her art projects never got the same glow from him. My parents leaned toward her. Linda would say things like, "Bry's sensible. She'll create something real." Wayne agreed, brushing off my computer experiments as a passing phase. They'd honor her report cards with big dinners while my average grades drew little more than a shrug. Aunt Sheila saw the strain but remained neutral, often steering the conversation elsewhere during holidays to avoid arguments. She lived close by and visited the shop sometimes, but never chose sides. Just reminding us that families had their own dynamics. As I matured, the gap widened. I spent summers in the cafe learning from Grandpa Melvin about giving back, like donating brews at local events. He recognized potential in my coding, urging me to keep at it. Brandy focused on her interior design sketches, landing internships early, but she grumbled in private about how Grandpa preferred my odd tech passion. One evening after I pitched an app for tracking coffee supplies, he hugged me and said, "You're going to change things, kid." When I turned 24, I chose to leave Austin for San Francisco. My family pushed back. Linda wept about abandoning our roots. Wayne called it reckless. A part of me wondered if their resistance was real concern or just a ploy to keep me trapped in my comfort zone. Brandy scolded me for chasing useless dreams. Aunt Sheila stayed quiet, giving only a neutral wave goodbye. Only Grandpa Melvin stood behind me the night before I left. He handed me an envelope with $5,000 from his cafe savings. "Build something meaningful," he whispered, holding me tight. That gift launched my journey. And as I drove away from Austin, I vowed to make him proud. With Grandpa Melvin's faith guiding me, I poured myself into building my education startup in San Francisco. The $5,000 he gave me covered my first rent and laptop upgrades, allowing me to design online courses for small businesses. Within just a few years, the company expanded to 20 employees and reached a valuation of several million. I focused on creating tools that helped local shops like his adjust to digital learning methods. Through it all, I called him every Sunday, updating him on new features or client successes. He'd chuckle and say, "That's my girl." turning coffee breaks into classrooms. About a year ago, his voice began to change during those calls. He'd repeat stories or lose track of details from our last conversation. I offered to fly back to Austin, but he waved it off, insisting he was just slowing down. I should have pressed harder instead. I mailed gifts like a custom tablet to manage shop orders remotely, but Brandy started appearing more at the cafe. From the little he mentioned, she blocked my visits, claiming travel wore him out. When I tried calling the shop directly, the employee said she now controlled his schedule as his health worsened. Our calls grew shorter. He was on heavy pain medication for arthritis, the kind that clouds judgment. Brandy began handling his doctor visits and bank access, saying it was simpler since she lived close. Aunt Sheila was aware of the changes but stayed quiet, telling me during a rare call that it was best not to stir up trouble. 6 months ago, the crushing news arrived. Grandpa Melvin had passed peacefully in his sleep. I rushed to Austin immediately, numb with regret. The funeral overflowed with locals who cherished his cafe. Brandy planned everything, speaking about his community spirit with flawless emotion. Our parents glowed with pride at her performance. No one asked me to speak. At the lawyer's office for the will reading, the blow landed. Grandpa Melvin had left the coffee shop entirely to Brandy. It didn't add up. He'd always told me it would be mine, tied to the online expansion ideas I'd shared. The document had been altered just weeks before his death, during his heaviest medication phase. Bry's face hardened when I questioned it, claiming he realized she was the one there daily. Linda and Wayne nodded along. The lawyer confirmed its legality, but something felt wrong. I left Austin shaken, my sorrow shifting to suspicion once back in San Francisco. I couldn't release it. I hired a private investigator who specialized in elder cases. Over the next few months, fragments surfaced. The PI uncovered medical files showing Grandpa Melvin's confusion peaked on the day he signed the will, right after Brandy skipped his clarity meds. Emails between her and Todd revealed plans to sell the cafe for condos to erase their debts. Aunt Sheila had seen some of the restrictions but kept them hidden, admitting to the PI she thought it preserved peace. I collected everything: medical records, emails, staff statements, preparing for the inevitable showdown. The truth was undeniable. They had exploited him at his weakest. The PI's digging didn't end there. In the following weeks, he examined Grandpa Melvin's last months, tracing any unusual communication. A breakthrough came from a voice recorder I'd given him years earlier for jotting down shop ideas. The PI retrieved several entries where his voice was clear but troubled. In one, 3 months before his death, he noted Bry's constant visits and her urging to alter the will. "She keeps saying Angela's too busy in California to care about the shop," he said, his tone steady. "But that's not true. Angela's ideas would modernize this place without losing its heart." Another entry caught his unease about Bry's behavior. "Brandy seems upset whenever I mention Angela's progress. Today she snapped that Angela doesn't deserve the cafe since she left Austin. I don't understand my girls. One is building something big." Those recordings proved her envy had been there for years. The PI also uncovered messages between Brandy and Todd about the cafe property. One from 4 months earlier read, "Once we gain control, we can sell to your company and pay off the house loan." Todd replied, "Perfect. Condos there will flip fast. Just make sure the old man signs soon." Their intent was undeniable. Financial records revealed their massive debts, late mortgage payments, unpaid private school tuition, and Todd's construction projects sinking from bad bets. They needed quick money. The cafe's prime Austin location was their escape. Aunt Sheila's part came into focus. The PI interviewed her discreetly, and she admitted she knew about Bry's visitor restrictions. "I saw her rejecting Angela's calls sometimes," she confessed. "Brandy said it was to let him rest, but I suspected more. I didn't speak up because I thought it kept the family together." Her neutrality had turned into complicity, shielding Brandy at Grandpa Melvin's expense. The PI noted she dodged deeper questions, but her admission reinforced the pattern of isolation. As the evidence grew, so did my anger and my determination. The PI confirmed Brandy attended every medical appointment in those last weeks, even recommending stronger meds that clouded his mind. Cafe employees described her abruptly seizing control of finances around the time of the will change. I compiled everything, recordings, emails, debt documents, Aunt Sheila's testimony, into a secure file. With the truth in hand, I knew confronting them at Bry's dinner would be my moment. I booked a flight back to Austin, determined to expose what they'd done. Landing there, my stomach twisted with anticipation, clutching the evidence file I'd assembled. Bry's home in an upscale neighborhood screamed wealth. A sleek, modern design, manicured lawn, and shiny SUV parked outside. I rang the bell, the weight of my discoveries pressing on my chest. My sister opened the door in a tailored outfit, her smile polished but strained. She guided me to a dining room where a gleaming oak table was arranged for 5. Linda and Wayne sat rigidly, their expressions a mix of tension and expectation. Aunt Sheila gave a faint nod, her face unreadable. As we took our seats, the air felt charged, like a storm about to strike. The dinner began with light chatter, weather, my San Francisco life, carefully avoiding anything meaningful. Then Brandy cleared her throat, her eyes sharp with intent. "We've made a decision," she declared, glancing at Todd for support. "The coffee shop's land is too valuable to just sit there. We're selling it to Todd's company for a condo project. It's the smart choice." A part of me wondered if it was truly wise for the family, or just her way of cementing power. My fork stopped midair. Grandpa Melvin's Cafe, the soul of Austin's community, reduced to a quick cash grab. I set the fork down, keeping my voice steady. That shop has thrived for decades. Grandpa wanted it preserved, not destroyed. Bry's smile grew tighter. "You're not here, Angela. You don't get a say." Todd jumped in, his tone smug. "The market's booming. Condos will bring millions." I pushed back, my voice rising slightly. "Millions for whom?" "To erase your debts." Linda snapped, her tone biting. "Don't be selfish. Bry's thinking about family." Wayne nodded, adding, "It's practical progress." I questioned if they truly cared about Grandpa's legacy, or if the money had blinded them. Aunt Sheila kept quiet, eyes fixed on her plate. The air hummed with tension as I pressed forward. "Grandpa's legacy isn't your personal bank. He trusted me with that cafe." Brandy shot up from her chair, face burning red. "Trusted you? You abandoned him for California?" She grabbed a glass of water and poured it over my head, cold liquid dripping down my face. "You've got 5 minutes to leave my home," she spat, her voice venom-laced. Linda clapped, her eyes alight with approval. Wayne joined, his slow clap echoing hers. Aunt Sheila stayed still, her silence deafening. I wiped my face, pulse racing, but my resolve hardened. They thought I'd been shamed into retreat. They were wrong. Water slid from my hair, but I held my composure. The room froze in silence as I reached for my bag and pulled out the thick file. "Let's see what the truth looks like," I said calmly, slamming it on the table. Bry's victorious smirk faltered when she read the label. I flipped it open. "We'll start with the medical records. These show Grandpa Melvin's confusion spiked on the day he signed the will. Heavy pain meds, skipped clarity doses, right after you." Brandy took charge of every appointment. Bry's eyes went wide. "That's not—" I cut her off, holding up the next page. "And here's the recorder I gave him. Listen to this entry from 3 months before his death." I pressed play. Grandpa Melvin's voice filled the room. "Bry's been pressing about the shop today. Says Angela doesn't deserve it since she left. But Angela's ideas would keep this place alive." The recording ended and I watched the color drain from her face. "He knew you were jealous, even then." Todd shifted uneasily, his bravado cracking. I moved on to the emails. "These exchanges between you and Todd plot the sale before Grandpa Melvin was even gone. Once we get control, flip it for condos to clear the loans. And here, your debts spelled out. Overdue mortgage, unpaid school fees, failed projects." Linda gasped, her clapping hands now clenched tight. Wayne avoided my stare. Aunt Sheila finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew about the visitor limits. Brandy asked me to back her up. Said it was for his rest. I went along to keep peace, but I saw the change. Brandy collapsed into her chair, her fury twisting into panic. Please, Angela, we can divide it 50-50. You can take half the proceeds or even the cafe if you want. We were drowning, bills, the house, the kids' schools. Her voice cracked as she begged, eyes desperate. Todd placed a hand on her shoulder but quickly withdrew. I wasn't part of the will, he said, tone defensive. My role was only the development. If there's an issue, that's on her. He glanced at his phone, already calculating lawyers. The shift was immediate. Their united wall fractured into self-preservation. Linda tried to step in. We didn't know all the details. But I shook my head. You all allowed it. Wayne stayed mute, his earlier confidence gone. Aunt Sheila looked regretful, but offered no defense. As the evidence settled, Bry's pleas grew frantic. Part of me wondered, were they truly this guilty, or was I magnifying their flaws to seal my win? We'll cancel the plans. Just don't expose this. I snapped the file shut. Too late. The DA already has copies. Expect their call tomorrow. The DA acted quickly after I submitted the file. Within weeks, they interviewed everyone involved and filed charges against Brandy for undue influence and exploiting a vulnerable elder. Probate court moved just as swiftly, overturning the amended will based on the medical files and recordings. Grandpa Melvin's true wishes prevailed. The coffee shop became mine. Turning the key in the Austin door carried a mix of sorrow and relief, the rich scent of roasted beans flooding me with memories. Bry's downfall came swiftly. She took a plea to sidestep trial, sentenced to probation and community service. Her design firm cut ties at once, issuing a statement about integrity. Clients fled, leaving her career in ruins. Todd filed for divorce days later, insisting he had no knowledge of the forged will. His construction business collapsed as investors withdrew, bankruptcy arriving within months. Linda and Wayne faded from public life. The Austin community turned its back once word spread. Neighbors who once gathered at the shop now whispered of their enabling role. Shunned from church and events, they lived in isolation. Aunt Sheila called once, admitting her silence had been wrong. I let it ring. Her betrayal cut too deep. I blocked every number, every email, severing the ties for good. At first it hurt, but freedom outshone the ache. With the shop secure, I divided time between San Francisco and Austin. I reassured the staff that their jobs were safe. Many had worked beside Grandpa for years, sharing stories of his warmth. We grew with new ideas, online orders, community brewing classes. Locals rallied with a Save the Shop campaign, volunteering time for renovations. I added a workshop corner, teaching kids about entrepreneurship the way Grandpa once taught me. The cafe thrived, balancing tradition with modern energy. Regulars felt like kin, stopping by for conversations over steaming cups. One evening, a customer smiled. Your grandfather would be proud. I nodded, feeling him present in every pore. Cutting off blood relatives cleared space for a chosen family built on respect and loyalty. The lesson branded itself deep. True family isn't tied by blood, but by those who honor you without conditions. Standing for justice, even against kin, requires strength yet brings clarity. Betrayal scars, but choosing yourself heals. In the end, peace wasn't in revenge, but in safeguarding what mattered most.